Hello and good day, I bid to Dr. Noni. In this video, my group will presenting our Engineers in Society project with title Waste Treatment Management in Lube Oil Processing. I, Iman Fidaus, Tang Jiahui, Sachin Dave, Siti Nur Sabiha, and Elvin Leon would like to welcome to our presentation. So, in this presentation, we will explain on 5 chapters, which are Introduction on Source of Waste, secondly, Discussion on Topic, next, Technical Issue, Ethical Issue, and Corrective Actions, and lastly, Conclusion. In Chapter 1, I will talk about Introduction, which consists of objective and sources of waste. The objective of this project to predict and identify the source of failure for possible accidents or incidents. Secondly, to study on the possible failure caused by technical and ethical reasons. And lastly, to provide mitigation or corrective actions to the failure for future operation. So there are 3 types of waste such as solid, water, and gas. Source of solid waste in our plant is deactivated catalyst after completing its lifetime, where it can obtain when catalyst unloaded from fixed bed reactor. 3 types of catalysts used are nickel molybdenum supported on alumina, platinum palladium support on alumina, and palladium support on zeolite base known as ZSM5. Next, there are many sources of wastewater, but we focus on oily water, which is mixture of oil and water. Oily water can be categorized into three forms, known as free oil, emulsified oil, and dissolved oil. Meanwhile, for source of gas is the flue gas, which produced during combustion process by furnace to produce carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, NOx, SOx gas, heavy metal, and particulate matter. Next, I will pass to Sabiha to discuss on chapter 2.
Hi, I'm Sabiha. I will be presenting about the importance of waste management, Malaysia regulation govern and waste treatment system in solid, liquid and gas. For the solid waste in our plant is the spent catalyst. Spent catalyst consists hazardous properties such as the chemical remain on it, like the hydrocarbons, heavy metals and coke. For the liquid waste, which is wastewater, oily wastewater is being treated to meet the regulations set by the government under the EQA 1974 and to keep the water and human being healthy. For the gas waste, which is the flue gas, the flue gas is being treated to reduce the air pollution from emission of the toxic gas. Next, the regulation of the solid waste fall under the Environmental Quality Regulation Schedule Waste 2005 Schedule 2 shows that the solid spent catalyst waste has to dispose as Schedule Waste 202 after the treatment process. For the oily wastewater, it is fall under the clause of Environmental Quality Industrial Effluent, the Regulations 2009. And for the gas waste, which is flue gas, it is fall under the Environmental Quality Regulation 2014. I will continue about the waste management system in solid waste, which is the spent catalyst. The spent catalyst will be either reused or recovered off-site rather than it being simply disposed into the landfill due to the high stabilization treatment cost, storage and disposal costs. The recovery treatment will be done by the local catalyst recovery facilities, as our lube oil production plant are expected to have big amount of spent catalyst once in 5 to 10 years only. Move on to the wastewater treatment system, which is oily wastewater. Oily wastewater will undergo preliminary, primary and secondary treatment to remove sludge and oil from the wastewater. Desalter is used in preliminary stage and then it will further treated to primary treatment involving oil water separator, dissolved air flotation and equalization tank. In secondary treatment, the wastewater will undergo the biological treatment in the aeration tank and lastly to the gravity clarifier. Lastly, gas waste management system. Gas waste control system is used to treat the flue gas from the base oil plant. In this treatment, some amount of flue gas will be recycled and reused as preheat makeup air to reduce the temperature of the furnace. I will pass the floor to the Alvin to continue about chapter 3, 4, and 5.
Thank you, Ms. Sabiha. Hello, I'm Elvin Leon, and let's continue to the next part of the presentation. We have identified three case studies for both technical and ethical failure, which are fire and explosion, followed by the exposure of hazardous elements, and the emission and discharge which exceeds the regulation specification. The first technical issue identified is fire and explosion incident. Fire and explosion could happen if the air blower in the secondary wastewater treatment, which functions to inject air into the system, fails. The absence of air into the system promotes an aerobic process, therefore producing methane gas. This methane gas is extremely flammable and can be easily ignited if there is any heat ignition sources nearby. The corrective action for this particular issue is to attach a bypass pipeline with control valves and venturimeter to increase the velocity of supply air into the aeration tank to prevent the occurrence of anaerobic process, thus preventing the possibility of fire and explosion. Other than that, providing an effective SOP to overcome the reduction of air can also block out the major accident. Moving on to the ethical issue of fire and explosion. There are two discussed issues, and the first one is disobeying guideline and procedure of waste treatment by the employees. In fire and explosion mentioned in technical issue, this might happen due to the lack of good hot work procedure by the operators during welding and etc. Unsafe practice has a great possibility to cause fire and explosion due to the inappropriate equipment isolation procedure done during the hot work process. The corrective action for this particular issue is to establish and implement procedure that requires the identification of the equipment's performance, mainly the safety aspect pertaining to the operation, which in this case is the performance of the air blower. This is important to ensure a normal and safe condition to avoid any malfunction and equipment's failure. The next ethical issue under fire and explosion is the absence of fire and emergency team. This limitation can cause high probability of blazing fire due to the late response and inexperienced emergency response team. Besides that, smoking at prohibited area due to ignorance and lack of awareness and safety training can introduce ignition sources that can create fire spark and enhance the chances of fire and explosion. The corrective action for this particular issue is to establish network with the nearby fire station. In occurrence of any fire and explosion, the fire department nearby will assist the emergency process, thus can prevent huge loss in terms of damaged asset and most importantly, preventing any loss of life. The smoking issue should also be addressed by increasing the awareness of safety concerns to the employees by organizing safety workshop as the main step to prioritize safety. I will pass the floor to Mr. Sachin to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Elvin. Now I'll be talking about the technical issue, ethical issue, and corrective action for the exposure of hazardous element. So the technical issue that can occur at this incident is rupture of pipeline due to overpressure because of a clogged sludge in the pipeline connecting from aeration tank to the clarifier. So it can release hazardous contaminants such as ammonium and nitrogen into the surrounding. So the corrective action to prevent this kind of incident is to place sensor that measure differential pressure, and it is embedded with a high pressure alarm. So it is important. This can help the workers to get or to take immediate action to prevent any overpressure occurring. Secondly, we can place a concentration monitoring sensor of the sludge constituents. This can measure the concentration of sludge present in the pipeline. So we can also modify the pipeline with the addition of flange. So we can segregate the pipeline into two parts and place a flange into it. So once we know that there is an accumulation of clogged sludge, the workers can take scheduled maintenance as part of the scheduled maintenance to remove the contaminants which is sludge in the pipeline. So based on the same incident, we're talking about the issues in terms of ethical. So first is idle attitude of worker. The worker pays less attention to his duty, and he or she is not performing routine inspections. Therefore, there are several corrective actions that can be done. So firstly, having an emotional intelligence leader who can explain and give importance to the worker why he needs to do his job responsibly. Secondly, the supervisor, the leader, can
guide and observe the worker who is having this kind of attitude. Thirdly, if the worker is not doing his job well and still maintains this kind of attitude, the leader or the supervisor can give immediate warning letter so that he won't repeat this mistake and he will understand his importance to do his duty. Next, I'll be passing the floor to Tang to talk about the other incidents. Thank you.
Thank you, Sachin. And now I'll take over the presentation and explain on the technical issue, ethical issue, and corrective actions for discharge and emission that exceed regulation limits case study. The first technical issue is due to failure of recycle pump for the clarifier, where the clarifier is designed to recycle part of the bottom sludge and another part will be supplied into the sludge tank. Discharge of wastewater are found to exceed BOD limits which is greater than 50 mg per liter when the amount of accumulated sludge in the tank increases and carried together with the wastewater effluent. Corrective action is to consider on the process instrumentation system, which is having a concentration transmitter at the outlet of the treated wastewater piping and controller that immediately bypass the understandard treatment, understandard effluent, as well as switch on the backup recycle pump. The second technical issue is due to the blockage at the bottom outlet for oil-water separator. Oil sludge is supposed to flow out from the separator, build up the piping circumference, and block the sludge exits. This will increase the amount of accumulated suspended solid until the sludge particles are carried together with the wastewater effluent. Corrective action for this incident is to install a low flow alarm at the sludge outlet to notify the operator for pipe cleaning, as well as the process instrumentation and control system that open the bypass valve so that the contaminated treated wastewater will be recycled back into the system. The third technical issue might be due to low supply coagulant in the dissolved air flotation DAF system, where the wrong signal are sent to the coagulant control valve if the control equipment are not placed in position. Lack of coagulant chemicals will lead to incomplete coagulation process, which results in producing effluent that did not meet the pH range. To solve the low coagulant supply failure, the management have to ensure that operators are performing scheduled equipment checking at the given time intervals, as well as to install the low flow alarm to notify operators on the low coagulant supply. Moving on the ethical reason that might cause discharge that exceed regulation limit is the corruption between company and the authority parties. Some of the plant management will give higher priority to minimize the investment costs and operating costs instead of environmental and human safety factors. When their discharge specification did not meet the regulation limits due to the low quality of their treatment system, management or the employee might try to cover the things up by performing the bribery action. Hence, to prevent the corruption issue among company employees and the authority parties, the company has to uphold on the anti-bribery and corruption policy to encourage employees on reporting any non-conformance action instead of participating in any illegal issue. Lastly, ethical failure that due to irresponsible action by the employee is another common issue faced in the industry. This can simply affect the quality of the wastewater treatment system when the employee did not perform their daily tasking like checking on the sample quality during the specific given time or did not follow the standard operating procedure (SOP). Solution to handle the irresponsible employee is that the company can implement the merit and demerit system where merit will be awarded to the employee that perform well and demerit will be awarded in the other way around. The merit and demerit system then can be written as bonus addition or bonus deduction. In conclusion, it is essential to perform prediction on the possible failure due to technical as well as ethical issue to reduce the possibility on having failure during the operation. Management has to play important roles to lead and guide the employees in doing the right things in the right time to prevent this failure. And now we will end our presentation from Group 7 here. Thank you.